G'day guys, Wright here, and in this video, I'm going to be explaining the top 5 most common mistakes e-commerce businesses make that keep them from getting to $100,000 per month in revenue. Now, if you don't know me, my name's Wright. I run the e-commerce equation. We are a community of 300 of Australia's best direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands, and we help brands by coaching them to learn how to operate for maximum profitability, to attract customers in mass, and to convert for better efficiency. So that being said, let's rip in.
Let's begin.
Now, a lot of these mistakes are mistakes that I've made personally, and they're also mistakes that I see week in, week out working with a lot of e-commerce brands. The first one I want to talk to you guys about is having inadequate margin. I think that the number one killer of e-commerce businesses is poor unit economics. Now, let me explain what unit economics is. Unit economics refers to the company's revenue and cost for an individual unit of production. So it's basically getting an understanding of what is the cost of each product and what is the components of each of those costs so that you can assess what's going on. It becomes very hard to make an e-commerce business work if you are not selling your products for 3, 4, 5x what you buy them for. I see brands that are selling for 2 or 2.5x what they buy for, and not always, but often it's just not quite enough.
Well, better luck next time.
There's a reason that the big online resellers have really struggled. If you look at, say, Adore Beauty, right? They listed on the stock market so you can see all their financials. Last year in 2022, they turned over $200 million and they made about $3.5 million profit. That's like 1.8% profit. Turning over 200 million to make 3 sounds like a living hell to me. If the biggest and the best guys can only turn a 1 or 2% profit, what chance do you think that you have? The reality is, when you're looking at your product margin, you need to be selling for at least 3x what you're buying for. The products that I sell, like this stubby holder, it costs $2.60 to make, we sell it for 20 bucks. But there's also a secondary you need to think about, and that's your fixed cost. So what that means is that for every $100,000 of turnover per month, you would have $10,000 or $20,000 of fixed cost, which would include rent, salaries, subscriptions, overheads, those sorts of things. Now, what I see quite common is people will get to $30,000 or $40,000 per month, and they'll go and lease a Range Rover, and that might be 5% added to your fixed cost. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you start adding up a lot of these things, it can really start to bleed you. And when your fixed costs start going into the 30 or 40% range, it becomes hard again to turn a profit and hard again to reinvest into, more stock or diversifying your range or basically scaling, right? So if you can stay super lean and you can work on your product margin, then you have a far better chance of success. So the second thing that I see as a massive mistake for founders is having low clarity into what is happening in the business. Now, every month, my coaching business, Ecommerce Equation, starts working with 50 new brands. And the very first thing that we do is we install a new way of operating the business, which includes getting a track of daily profitability and key cost and performance metrics every single day. And what this does is it creates superhuman levels of clarity into what is happening. And that, in turn, gives you a huge degree of confidence to either do more of what's working or gives you confidence in what you need to work on so that it does work. By tracking daily profit, something magical happens. You then have a North Star that you can look at. So as you make changes in your business, you can see if it affects daily profit. And that gives you confidence that that was the right change and that you can keep doing more of it, or that it wasn't the right constraint in the business and you need to go and find the true constraint to work on. And obviously profit is one metric, and all of the breakdowns of the cost centers and the performance metrics benchmarked against hundreds of other brands help you get some real clarity into what's going on.
I like that.
Let's talk about the third point, neglecting product. Let me give you an example. One of the biggest breakthroughs that I see is over time brands changing their products. Now, this can be big changes or it can be little changes. And I often see people fall in love with their product and basically don't listen to the customer. Now, when I launched Dad Cooler, we launched with this design, which was a nice, meaningful message and putting, your dad's photo on it. And for me, I thought that was awesome. I thought it was going to be nice, but it wasn't until we started putting dogs on a stubby holder that things went ballistic, right? And it was literally double the revenue per visit from a dog design versus a dad design. So the iterative process of the product is what gets so many of the breakthroughs. And even when I'm working with some of the biggest clients that I work with, so much of their breakthroughs, even though you don't necessarily see this behind the scenes, is because of product. Now, obviously, people know me as the ads guy or the scale guy, and a lot of credit goes to ads. But so much of what makes the ads work is that the product is constantly improving, constantly outstripping the competitors in the space.
To infinity and beyond!
If you think of LSKD, when I started working with those guys in 2019, they had a really amazing pair of tights. They literally just released their first tight when we started working together. But even though it was one of the best in the market, they have gone through about 6 factories in 3 years, finding better and better quality. They've started manufacturing their own fabric and doing their own yardage. And they've changed the design 5 or 6 times. They've released so many variants. And their best-selling tight now isn't the best-selling tight they had back then. And it's that constant striving to improve your product, taking customer feedback and making it better is so critical. And ignoring that and just falling in love with your product or just thinking that what you've got there is adequate will over time bleed you out and be a cause of failure. Neglecting your product is one of the biggest mistakes that I see. Let's talk about the 4th mistake. I've spoken about a lot, but it's outsourcing marketing. Now, a huge mistake I see founders make is basically outsourcing arguably the most important part of the business, which is getting customers into your world. Abdicating all responsibility of one of the biggest tasks of your job is crazy to me. It's not some side thought, right? You need to have real-time feedback and input into the acquisition to scale correctly. And every time there's a communication gap or a time gap, if you're meeting once a week with someone or even every couple of days, every time you don't have that real-time feedback at your fingertips from the market about your product and your messaging and your imagery and your videos, then you're just getting like a negative feedback loop, right? And we want to have a positive feedback loop. There's a reason that all of the biggest brands, most of the brands that you aspire to be like, there's a reason that all of them run ads in-house. The product is the cost of admission, but really, as you start to go to the 6-figure months, you really need to have acquisition as a core part of your business. Outsourcing marketing too soon is a fundamental mistake. And I think there's a time and a place to get support, but really you can't just abdicate all responsibility and hope someone else is going to take care of that problem for you. The last mistake that I see is controversial. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to basically tell you about why trying to scale with more than one channel to get to 6 figures a month is a mistake. I believe that a big mistake that brands make trying to get to $100,000 a month is that they try and do so much. They're doing Google, Facebook, TikTok ads, they're doing influencer marketing, and they don't really know what is contributing to their performance. I was scaling my last e-commerce brand, Gabby Taps. We sell tapware, and we were scaling with Google and Facebook, right? We're spending $1,000 or $1,500 a day on each of those channels. And both of those channels said that they were great, right? The attribution in both of them looked great. And we were just sort of scaling them both up in lockstep. Now, in March last year, something happened. My credit card bounced on Google and I wasn't paying attention. Don't judge, I'm sure you've done it as well. But about 7 days went by without Google. Now, what happened was we were doing, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 days. And what happened was we actually dropped, and the average over that time went to $2,000 a day. So really, that made me question, well, what the hell is Facebook doing? If we dropped by more than 50% when only half of the ad spend dropped, that really made me question, well, what is Facebook doing? So when we put the card back on and we reinstated Google, we shifted the budgets and we started doing 2/3 Google, 1/3 Facebook. And what happened was we hadn't done a lot of 5-figure days, but we almost immediately started doing $8,000 days. And then we saw a $13,000 day. And then we started seeing quite consistent 5-figure days and some really big days. And it really felt like Google was doing more. The results of that were basically an unintended holdout test. If I hadn't done that, I probably would have just been spending too much on Facebook and not enough on Google. Now, I don't think that's right for everyone. I think Taps is a very specific product and maybe suited to Google more than most other brands, right? I'm a huge fan of Facebook. Most of the brands I work with are scaling with Facebook, but in this scenario, that's just how it happened to pan out. So what you can learn from this is that it's really hard to have confidence to scale one channel if you have another channel which is dragging down performance. What happens is if you have one big lever, one channel, and you pull on that lever and you see your store change, then you know it was that lever that you pulled on. If you have 5 levers and you pull on them all and your store changes, you never know which one it was, right? And you don't have confidence to double down on that one. So what I would suggest is choose one channel and yank on that bad boy as hard as you can and see what happens, right? And if it doesn't work, then fully explore it. Make sure you've implemented as much as you can and you're confident that that channel has been exhausted, and then move on to the next one. And in doing that, you'll be able to scale a channel to $100,000 a month. And I think it doesn't really matter which channel you use. It could be organic TikTok, it could be Google ads, it could be Facebook ads, it could be Pinterest ads, who knows? But as long as you've got one, I think nearly all brands can get to 6 figures a month in Australia, unless you're crazy niche. But even small niches like mountain biking or something like that can really get to a high degree of scale, even with one channel. So they're the 5 big traps, the 5 big landmines that you can avoid. I hope you found these useful. Let me know in the comments below which of those resonated with you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.